after listening to this wonderful reminder for all of us that we actually are facing a big crisis in this world. But actually the crisis is not the climate. The climate really needs justice. So that's why I feel like I would like to talk about the climate justice, but we cannot separate it from the social justice. Our behavior and searching for luxury and more luxury is the real cause of where we are now. Our lack of vision, and everyone is searching for his or her own needs, regardless of the others, is the real cause of what we are facing now. And I think I have been, for many years, naive in how to really address these issues. Years back, I was sitting with a friend of mine who was a journalist from Sweden, and we were talking about politics and what is happening. Then I came to him, I said, imagine if all the member states of the United Nations will just for one day, would give us all the money that they spent on weapon production. What would happen in the world? He laughed and he said, oh, this is a wonderful idea, but who can make it? And a few years later, I was invited to Norway in one of the conferences like this. And I said, imagine if the all member states of the United Nations would just give us one day of their weapon production. We will be able to save the world. We will be able to help planting the desert. We will help in sorting out this crisis of food and poverty and whatever it is. It's trillions of dollars. And of course, it never happens. But on the contrary, war after a few years started. And when the war started, I was just sitting with a friend of mine who is also a politician. And I said to him, how much is a missile? And he said, why, do you want to buy one? I said, no, I just want to say how much is a missile? How many millions? And I see that we are still on the same process. Fear, aggression, and lack of unity of humanity. And we will reap what we sow. And I think it's time now that we will start to see something different. And as I see, I go back with my thoughts. When I was walking in the desert, and I looked at it and I said that, imagine if this desert will be green. And imagine if all this will become full of fruits. Walking in such a desert in the land of Egypt, I decided to start anaphora. Anaphora, it's a gift for me, because I felt like, could it be something that the land would be green, the desert could be green? I invited some of my friends, and one very particular friend who is very much active in different areas of development. And I told him, I would like you to come with me and see. I have a big project. And there, he saw the desert. And I saw anaphora. 15 years later, he said to me that, yes, we were celebrating 15 years of making the land greener. And he gave this phrase, which I use now, and he said that when I stood here with Bishop Thomas, I saw the desert, he saw anaphora. And I think this was a key, an eye-opener for me to see that maybe we need to see, all of us together, that we are able, we can make a change. We can if we only understand that we are responsible, all of us. It's not only the people who are in a rich position or the ones who are in poor areas. We are all responsible. Because after all, every one of us will think of his or her own context. There is me, with my own experience, with my own context, with my own challenges, and there is you, with your own. And maybe when we talk about us, this us could be also a very big segmentations. Maybe you would say us Danish, or say us artists, or say us politicians, or whatever. But I would like us to go higher and see the vision of the big us. It's the big us. And the big us includes every human being, every tree, every living creature, the seen and the unseen. And it's not only that, it includes also the spiritual arena. It's not only that, it includes God himself. He is there in us. So if we are able to move from just seeing us to see the big us, we may have a chance in saving our planet. Not for this generation only, but for the others, for those who are coming. So I see the first thing I would love that people could think of the others, think of something higher. The big us is a call. If I failed to believe that the member states of the United Nations would, for one moment, would think of stopping weapon production, I would believe that there will be some people who would believe in the big us and work for it. The second thing I feel like, we know that it's a big crisis, what we are facing. But still, I cannot separate what is happening now with the climate justice and the social justice. Are we ready to let go of a lifestyle that it is actually the cause of all these problems, or we are not? 2 years ago, it was very much heat wave in Egypt. It's desert, lack of water. Our water that we are pulling from the underground became saline, and it's very hot. All the trees that we planted were very much suffering, and I see all of them start to fall down. It was very hard for me to see, and there was no fruits. They stopped producing any. And it was very hard to look at this. And I said to myself, if I could not do anything for them, at least I would not share in this kind of tragedy. Why we have all these problems of higher temperature? And I looked at it from a completely different perspective. Yes, I understand the changes in the weather. I understand the climate change and what we have heard is real. But I said to myself, maybe I start by myself. And I want you to imagine, if you live in a small city and 10% of this city will use air conditioning, and the rest of the people, they would not have, they only have small fans. And those who are having air conditioning, they will produce heat and send it to those that they would not have. And that means that the temperature in this very small area will go higher. So some people, they are living in a very nice climate indoors, while the others, because they are not able to buy or finance this air conditioning situation, they will have to suffer. And then nobody would say anything, because I didn't steal anything from you, I didn't hurt you, I didn't do anything for you. I just have money to buy something. And I looked at this situation, I said, no. And I stopped one day, and I gathered my people, and I said, from that day, I will not use in any of my office or room or meeting areas any of the air conditions, because we cannot build our own comfort on behalf or on the account of the others. If we stop that, it might be helpful. Maybe nobody will feel it, but at least I would feel that I am not sharing in making the dire situation of others. And I stopped, and I tell you, I was suffering, I was sweating, I was feeling hard, bad, but I was so happy inside me, because I felt like at least I could do something small. So here, why I'm telling you this story, I think we can make a difference in our lifestyle that would not accelerate this kind of crisis when we can say stop for things that we know that they are the cause of the problem. Luxury and lifestyle has become a real problem because our focus is the standard of living. And the standard of living would never stop. It's like creating your own shadow and run after your shadow, or you're dancing with the shadow. Sometimes we are trying to behave like chicken without head, because simply we are running after our shadows or dancing with it. Can we, for a serious moment in our life, would stop one style of lifestyle and say, enough is enough. It has to be changed. I'm saying this, I know that it's very hard for people to stop, and change the lifestyle. I know maybe I'm having the same thoughts, like if I would just imagine that the member states of the United Nations will ever believe that one day of weapon production would save lots of crises. Maybe also I'm saying this, and I know that maybe we can walk out of this room and say, okay, that's a nice thought, but I would never stop my air conditioning. I would never stop my traveling plans. I would never stop the way I use my cars or the way I use the whole lifestyle is simply needs to be changed. And at the same time, I don't know how. I can do it with myself, but I cannot force other people to do it. But at least, out of your own personal conscience, if I do something of my own conscience to calm myself, maybe other people would do that. I myself said to myself, the day I travel and use aircrafts or my car, I would have to plant a tree. Just for me, for a personal meaning, I would say like maybe this little tree that I will plant, it will help in the future. So imagine if all of us would help to reclaim the desert, how big it would be of trees in the future. With anaphora, I said to myself, if I will start, I started 23 years ago, and now it's green. And this desert that I saw first, it's fruitful. It's lots of trees, thousands of trees. And I feel like, why don't we repeat it again and again and again in different other places? And now I'm doing anaphora too, in the desert, in the south. And I feel like, okay, we start small. And then whenever we have a chance, we reclaim a small piece of land and plant it. Maybe we cannot stop the big companies of producing this kind of crisis, but we can make a difference in planting trees in the world. We can make a difference in working on social justice. We can make a difference on lifting one another up, on trying to change the lifestyle. Standard of living is not life. When we focus on the standard of living, we miss life because it becomes this kind of activities and the facade that we are living in. Sometimes we may need to focus on life, not on the standard of living. And that I'm very happy that there is no certain equations when you say that this, if you have this amount of money, then you're rich. Richness is very much relative. It's nothing. You would one day just see like it's nothing and you want more. When are we going to stop on using and consuming life? And I think we need for a moment, if we start with ourselves, using things that it's much easier and be environmental friendly, that we can make a difference. And of course, it's the biggest problem as I see it now, it's when you try to say like, okay, I will eat organic food because it's healthy, it's nice, because it's environmental friendly. But imagine it's much more expensive. And who will use it? They are the elite. And those middle class people, they would not be able to afford it. So they would tend to go to the other side. It's a vicious circle. We need to work together to make those kind of things available. That's the nature things that is happening. Sometimes caring for the environment and talking about it becomes for the elite. And the poor ones, they are not thinking of it. They're only thinking how to secure food for their families. They are not thinking of, is it produced in an organic way or not? They want food for the families. And if we are able to help food sovereignty in the world, we may be able to also solve the problem. So I think if we are able together to make a life change, a lifestyle that is needed to be changed, and think of the others, think of the world, we may have a chance to save this earth. And I think there are lots of people in the world now, they are searching, they want to do something. Clean energy, yes, we all think of it, but who can afford it? It's very much easier to use this fossil fuel. It's very easier to go for gas, go for petrol. But to go for electric things, if that's solar, or it's expensive. Can we help in making this kind of technology available for the normal poor ones? Or we have to stay, this is for the elite? I think it's much bigger than only clean energy and stop production of CO2. It is much more of a social justice. It's much more of our lifestyle. Where are we going? Are we really appreciate our humanity? Or are we only wanted us? Anyway, we need to start with ourselves, because I see healing our inner person, healing our humanity is healing the globe. And if we want to heal the globe, we need to start with ourselves. So can we start now? If I would come and say, stop this and this and this and this, you will tell me, this is illusions. This is too much of a change. But if we start with a small little thing, one step at a time, we may have a chance. I'm praying every day that people who would see the problem, they will make a change. Plant one tree. For example, I'm inviting all of you. Come reclaim the desert. When we are using all this luxury, maybe it's also another hand to reclaim the desert and plant trees in the desert. It may give us a chance for the whole generation to come. Thank you so much.